1968, I was pastoring at the Jefferson Church. I was a student pastor. I'd been there 3 years. And I had completed my seminary work, and it was time to be ordained. And I talked to Superintendent Millen, and I said, you know, I'm not sure with all this going on that I don't know if I want to be ordained this year. And he said, well, Folmer, you know, he says, after this is over, what we think will happen, we don't really know just where we'll be or what we'll be exactly on. We won't know our status with the government for who knows. He says, I think you better just go along and do it. Let's get it done. Okay. It was an amazing experience to go through, watching the change, being part of the change. At one point, we were all gathered in the conference session, and they had selected, they had a committee of bishops and people who were there to kind of convince us we should go with this merger. And they had picked out a conference superintendent from back east who was to speak to us. And he got up and just laid us out in strips, just tanned our hide. And at one point he said, you have forsaken your ordination vows. And we're all sitting there, and Doug Drysdale, bless his heart, young pastor, he was about 2 rows behind me, and he said, no, we have not. And he stood up and he spoke a few minutes. And the guy up front sort of, okay, he sat down. He was done. But I was ordained one night, and the next day, about 2/3, 3/4 of us, at a given moment, we stood up in the conference, and we all walked out. That night, we met together in, I think, church in Milwaukee. I think it was Milwaukee First Church or whatever it was, and committed to move together, move forward together as one. I prayed a lot for George and Dolph, who were really our key leaders, and I tell you, George looked as white as a ghost. I mean, I really was concerned. I was afraid he might have a heart attack or something. But that was the beginning, and the Lord led, and so here we are today, 50 years later. 50 years later. It's an interesting, kind of an interesting thing to experience that and walk through it and see the church go through various phases to where we are today. In my way of thinking, the two perhaps most important things that we need to be careful that we always stay with, and we never forget, and we always commit ourselves to. First of all, is the Word of God. The integrity, the truth, the clarity, the inspiration of the Word of God. You find that in 2 Timothy 3:15 and 16. God-breathed, inspired. The Word of God is God-breathed. Whenever we start to move away from that, we have left behind our foundation, the rock of our faith, everything that's sacred to us. The other thing is Jesus' parting words, his marching orders. All authority is given to me in heaven and earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, all peoples, all tongues, all tribes, teaching them to obey. That's the key word, to obey everything that I have commanded you. Those are still our marching orders. That should be perhaps the first priority of the church until Jesus comes back and says, okay, now you can quit. Come on home. You know, my whole life, My whole ministry has been committed to that until this very day. That's precious to us. That's about it.